Hello and welcome to The Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm really excited to be diving into another topic with you today. Today, we're tackling something really crucial for understanding the world around us, the language of politics. We're constantly bombarded with news, global events, things that affect us all. And just skimming headlines, it's not enough to really get it. You need the vocabulary, the right words to dissect and analyze what's going on. So our mission today, to give you, our listener, a really solid toolkit. We've got over 40 C1 level terms, verbs, nouns, adjectives. These cover everything from local stuff to big international relations, even the ideologies shaping things. And we're not just going to give you definitions. We'll dig into the meanings, the nuances, how they pop up in the real world, make them stick. We want you to leave understanding why these words matter, how they show that, tension between freedom and collective power, why systems change, or sometimes why they fall apart.
That's a great way to put it, because it's not just memorizing words, is it? It's about understanding, empowerment, really. Language is power. And in politics, having that precise vocabulary, well, it genuinely changes how you see things. We're trying to give you the lenses, to see the mechanics, the motivations behind the news, get past the surface stuff. And what's really fascinating, I think, is how each term, when you dig deeper, it just unveils another layer of complexity, things you might totally miss otherwise. We'll try to uncover those surprising connections, maybe even challenge how some of these terms get thrown around.
Okay, let's get started then. First up, words about driving change. How things get started, push forward, could be direct pressure, maybe big social movements, or sometimes just a slow, steady push for systemic change. These are the action words, you could say. Impact, movement, that constant political push and pull.
Exactly. And what's interesting here is how they show all the different ways people or groups can try to shape things, all the levers they can pull. Political action isn't just one thing, right? It comes in lots of forms. Subtle persuasion, big public challenges. Understanding these different ways is, well, it's key to seeing how change actually happens, or sometimes why it doesn't.
Let's start with to lobby. That verb really gets to the heart of influence, doesn't it? Simple definition, trying to persuade politicians about laws, creating them, changing them. But it's more complex than just asking nicely. To lobby. It implies a direct, organized effort, really trying to sway people in power. Think about the force behind big decisions. It's strategic persuasion, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's critical. And let's be honest, sometimes controversial. A big part of the political landscape. Take the pharmaceutical industry, for example. They're known for lobbying lawmakers pretty intensely, pushing for faster drug approvals. And that's not just, a friendly chat. It's a strategic, often very well-funded push. Powerful sectors using their influence to speed up regulations that help their business. And that can fundamentally shape policy, sometimes maybe prioritizing corporate interests over, say, public safety concerns. What's really compelling is how this direct advocacy shapes the agenda, often, behind closed doors.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really interesting, because it's not always about big money or corporations. We see environmental groups lobbying hard against things like new mining bills. That shows advocacy groups with totally different motives, using the same tactics, persuasion to stop laws they see as harmful. So lobbying is really a tool, right?
Yeah.
A tool for pushing an agenda, whatever that agenda is. Social causes, environmental ones too. But can lobbying ever be truly democratic? Or is it just always tilted towards those with the cash?
That's a really sharp question, and it hits the core debate, doesn't it? On one hand, in many places, it's a fundamental right. The right to petition your government. Citizen groups, nonprofits, individuals, they can lobby. And they do. For civil rights, local improvements, all sorts of things. The big challenge, though, resources. The massive disparity. When huge corporations can pour money into professional lobbyists, campaign donations, fancy data analysis, well, it raises fair questions. Are all voices really equal? Think about corporate executives lobbying local officials, maybe to cut import taxes. That shows how targeted it can be, even at the city level. Directly impacting local economics, maybe hitting local services. So yeah, understanding to lobby helps you see those powerful, sometimes hidden forces shaping the laws affecting your life. And it helps you ask, okay, whose interests are really being served here?
Okay, so lobbying is that direct push. If we move from that to more systemic improvement, we get to reform. This verb feels deeper, more widespread. It's about improving a whole society, law, system, organization, making significant changes, lots of them. It's not just tinkering, it's more like an overhaul. Reimagining the structure.
That's a vital distinction, yeah. And the examples make it clear. Think about a school board deciding to reform the grading system. They're not just changing one grade boundary, it's an effort to update the whole structure.
Yeah.
For fairness, maybe better assessment, reflecting learning better. That's a real systemic improvement in a public institution. Trying to make things work better for everyone involved, students, teachers. It's about challenging how things are and rebuilding with better principles in mind.
And the economic side, too. Massive implications there. Governments are always reforming tax laws, right? Not just to get money, but strategically, stimulate growth, maybe redistribute wealth. It shows how fiscal policy gets tweaked to tackle big economic challenges. Tax reform, healthcare reform, we hear those terms all the time. They imply a huge, often difficult restructuring.
Absolutely. And crucially, reform can be a direct answer to public outcry. Social unrest. Think about activists pushing to reform criminal justice practices after big protests. That shows public pressure driving changes, aimed right at deep-seated inequalities, perceived injustices in the legal system. So reform can be an urgent response to societal demands. It plays a huge role in social progress, the search for a fairer society, the process. Often slow, full of political fights, but the goal is systemic improvement. So when you hear reform, you're hearing about efforts to reshape institutions, make them serve their purpose better, fix societal problems, often against real resistance.
Okay, linked to that, we have activism and activist. These feel like the engine behind a lot of reform. Activism is the broad effort, right? Striving for social or political change, often organized, and an activist is the person doing it, driving that change, where individual passion meets collective action, can make huge waves.
You nailed it. Two sides of one coin. One's the action, the other's the agent. Think about individual commitment. Someone involved in activism since they were a teen, tirelessly pushing for gender equality, women's rights. That shows long-term, often deeply personal dedication. It illustrates activism as these organized efforts, sometimes spanning generations, fueled by a belief in a better world. It's not just a hobby, it's sustained commitment.
And the impact can be huge, sometimes literally changing laws. Grassroots activism, community efforts, starting with everyday people, played a massive role in passing key environmental protection laws in many places. That highlights how community initiatives, even without big budgets, can have real clout. Influence legislation shows change can start from the ground up when people unite.
Plus, technology has totally reshaped it. The form, the reach, online activism, using social media, digital platforms that's mobilized millions globally, human rights issues, you name it, shows these digital forms of advocacy, how activism evolves. Think about hashtags sparking global movements. And beyond big campaigns, you have the individual activist standing out. Maybe an animal rights activist, motivated by something they saw, staging awareness campaigns. Or a climate activist chaining themselves to gates, drawing attention. Diverse tactics for visibility, ethical causes, even a labor activist negotiating better wages. That's activism too. Improving lives through direct action, negotiation. Recognizing these terms helps you see all the different ways people engage politically, beyond just voting, actively working for a better future, often with huge personal commitment, sometimes sacrifice. It really shows the power of will, individual and collective.
Really powerful stuff. Okay, so we've seen how change is pushed. Let's shift gears. Let's look at the frameworks, the roles defining how countries are actually run. These are the words for the bones and muscles of government, how decisions get made, power is used, services delivered, the structure itself.
Yeah, this is about the mechanics of power. From those foundational documents right down to daily operations, the people keeping things running. Understanding these terms lets you grasp the underlying structure, governing everything from national policy to local stuff. You see how it's all connected. It's the blueprint and the workforce.
Right at the base, you have the Constitution. More than just rules, you said. It's like the legal soul of a nation. Official laws, principles. And constitutional is the adjective, meaning related to or following those rules. The bedrock of law. Sets powers, limits, rights.
Absolutely. It's the foundational agreement, the covenant. Look at South Africa's constitution from '96, enshrining equality, human dignity, post-apartheid. It shows these documents embody national values, hopes, and they're not static. Amendments often need broad agreement. Supermajorities, referendums sometimes. Shows they adapt, but fundamental changes need wide consensus. And the courts. Critical role. A court ruling a law unconstitutional. That's judicial oversight. Shows the Constitution's role in checks and balances. Ensuring laws don't overstep, don't violate rights. Constitutional reforms happen all the time. Modernizing legal frameworks. Boosting democracy as society changes. Understanding constitutional. Vital for grasping power limits, citizen protections, the legitimacy of government actions.
Okay, so Constitution is the frame. Then legislation is building the rules within that frame. The act or process of making laws. Passing statutes. It's the day-to-day work of government, often painstaking.
It is. Dynamic, often really complex. Subject to so many influences. Think about lobbyists, different industries working hard to influence, say, healthcare legislation. Shows how vulnerable it is to outside pressure, different interests trying to shape the outcome. But it also shows responsiveness. New legislation to curb online misinformation, for example. That's laws being created to tackle modern problems, evolving challenges like the digital age. And the process can be long. Legislation passing after months, even years of debate, negotiation, underscores the procedures, the deliberation, needs careful thought, compromise among different groups. Every new law, regulation, change to a rule that's legislation. Knowing the term helps you track how policies become actual enforceable rules affecting daily life.
And behind every piece of legislation, there's a policymaker. Someone making the tough calls, deciding the policies a government or organization follows. The decision architects, huge influence.
They really do shape our world. Sometimes literally. Take a policymaker praised for improving healthcare access. Shows their potential positive impact, designing systems serving millions. But they're often deep in controversial stuff too. High-stakes issues. Like policymakers debating immigration reforms late into the night, grappling with complex social, economic factors, facing intense public scrutiny, and their reach can be global. International policymakers meeting about climate funding shows their role in multilateral agreements, decisions with worldwide impact on environment, economy. Knowing who the policymakers are helps you see where responsibility lies, who to hold accountable for the direction things are going, nationally, even globally.
Okay, then mandate. The public's stamp of approval, you called it. The green light. The legal power given to a government or group after winning an election. Authority to act on their promises.
Perfect way to phrase it. It's about legitimacy. The perceived authority to act. Like a trade union council getting a mandate from members to negotiate better conditions. Shows delegated power in a labor context. A clear democratic basis for action, and crucially, an election giving a party a clear mandate for, say, economic reform, directly links power to public will. Shows the voters gave a clear signal and expectation for policy change. Even international bodies can have mandates. A humanitarian mandate guiding actions in crises or development projects. So when a government claims a mandate, they're saying the people spoke, gave them authority. But, it's always worth asking how broad or how specific that mandate really is.
Bureaucracy. That word conjures images, doesn't it? Endless forms, slow processes, maybe inefficiency, red tape. But it's also the essential engine, a system run by appointed officials, not elected ones, and administrative is related. About managing tasks, resources, two sides of the implementation coin.
Indeed, a real double-edged sword. Managers might complain about bureaucracy being an obstacle, all that red tape. But navigating it, often essential. Getting permits, licenses, government help shows its role in regulatory compliance. For people, for businesses, it's the system making sure rules are followed. And you see efforts to streamline it. Reforms aiming to make national bureaucracy less cumbersome, more responsive, often a key promise from politicians. The administrative side, that's the internal efficiency, the organizational backbone. Administrative procedures making workflows smoother. Administrative staff handling election logistics, crucial support, even for democracy itself, making sure elections run okay. So whether you're applying for something or just trying to figure out how government works, bureaucracy is the system. Its administrative arm makes it tick.
Beyond the leader, like a president or prime minister, you have the cabinet, the core decision-making team. Senior government members, usually heading departments or ministries, they decide and control policy.
It's really the executive heart, a vital group. A cabinet reshuffle, for example, often aims to bring in fresh ideas, new expertise, tackle pressing issues, re-energize the government's plan, shows its dynamic nature. Cabinet meetings. That's where critical foreign policy strategies get discussed, decided, shows its central role, often involves super sensitive info, and the leader consulting the cabinet on budgets, shows its advisory role, collaborative process for major financial decisions affecting everyone. The cabinet is that collective leadership, driving big policies, advisors and implementers. Understanding cabinet dynamics often gives you real insight into a government's priorities and its internal struggles.
Okay, these next three really show how power gets distributed. Leaders chosen, especially in big, diverse democracies. We have federalism, central government, plus self-governing states, congressional relating to the U.S. Congress, and electoral about voting, elections, the architecture of shared power.
Foundational concepts, absolutely. Define the character of many democracies. Take federalism. Its principles were often designed to protect state sovereignty while keeping a unified nation. Shows that careful design balancing power. Allows regional policy variations. Better suit local needs, cultures. That's an adaptive benefit. But it's not without tension. Can lead to fights between states, legal battles over state versus federal power, big differences in services or rights depending on where you live.
That's a key point. The laboratories of democracy idea states trying things out, but also potential for inequality if some states fall behind. And in the U.S., congressional is how federal power gets used, right?
Exactly. In the U.S. system, the congressional budget process, House and Senate, sets federal spending priorities. Huge fiscal oversight. Defense, education, everything. Plus, congressional hearings, investigating scandals, policy failures, highlights accountability. Transparency, checks on the executive branch, can be dramatic, but it's a fundamental check. And finally, the electoral part. We look at electoral turnout, how many people vote, as a sign of civic engagement. Or electoral reforms trying to stop fraud, make voting easier. Shows how we measure and try to ensure democratic integrity. Even the system of an electoral college deciding U.S. presidents, while controversial, highlights specific historical electoral structures, not just a simple popular vote, causes big debates. So understanding federalism explains why laws vary state to state. Congressional and electoral explain how reps and leaders get chosen, power is checked, and how they're held accountable.
Okay, let's zoom out from inside a nation to the global stage. Exploring the vocabulary of nations interacting, defining their independence, making alliances, how countries fit into the bigger, often messy, global picture.
Right. This part delves into how states maintain their identity, manage complex relationships, navigate that international landscape, often through careful negotiation, formal agreements. It's about a country's very existence on the world stage, its rights, responsibilities, interactions with others.
First pair, sovereign and autonomy. About a nation's basic right to govern itself, no outside interference. Sovereign, self-governed, free from external control. Autonomy, the state of being independent. Deeply related, often used together, but maybe slight differences.
Deeply intertwined, yes. Represent ultimate independence, self-determination. A treaty signed to ensure the sovereign rights of a country were respected by neighbors. Emphasizes agreements protecting independence from aggression. Undue influence. Sovereign nations inherently have the authority to make their own laws. No outside power dictates. Defines state power internationally. An island nation declared sovereign after years of colonial rule. That depicts independence as a huge political milestone, joining the family of nations.
So sovereignty is the status of being independent, and autonomy is more the exercise of it, making your own decisions in practice.
Precisely. A sovereign state is inherently autonomous. But autonomy can also apply to a region within a larger state. For example, after gaining autonomy, a country sets up its own laws. Government, practical nation building. But we also talk about regional autonomy within a nation. Allows tailored policies, economics, education, culture. Think about indigenous communities fighting for cultural autonomy. Preserve their identity within a larger state, even without seeking full political sovereignty. So these words help understand a country's right to self-determination, its world standing, but also those nuances of self-rule within borders.
Building international ties sounds like a delicate art, full of specific rules, traditions. These terms seem key. Diplomatic, about friendly relations, ambassador, the representative abroad, and protocol, formal rules. Sounds like a sophisticated dance.
It absolutely is. And these are the pillars making that dance possible. Diplomatic immunity, for instance, protects diplomats from prosecution in the host country, ensures smooth interactions, provides crucial legal protection, lets them do their job without harassment. A cornerstone of international relations. Leaders using diplomatic talks to solve border disputes, trade issues, pandemics, highlights dialogue over conflict, peaceful negotiation as the preferred way.
And the ambassador is the main player in these diplomatic ties.
Definitely. A newly appointed ambassador arriving in a foreign capital illustrates that formal role, representing their nation. And their role isn't just politics. It can be cultural diplomacy, hosting a gala to strengthen ties, build understanding, or leadership in crises, navigating complex situations during high tension. And all these interactions, handshakes to treaty signings, are governed by protocol. Diplomatic protocols for a state visit show international etiquette, ensuring respect, proper conduct between leaders. It's not just international either. Strict protocols in courtrooms for addressing judges shows its role in justice. Breaches in security protocols underscore their safety function. At an embassy, an international summit, these terms light up that intricate dance between nations, often hidden but with huge global impacts. Peace, trade, culture.
Nations rarely go it alone globally. They form partnerships. These words describe those bonds. Alliance, association for common interests. Ally, country aiding another, especially in war. And treaty, official agreement between governments. Building blocks of cooperation, security.
Yes. The bedrock of international cooperation and security. Define influence spheres, mutual support, Cultural alliances between universities. Foster academic exchange. Shows non-political uses, building bridges between societies. More obviously, military alliances like NATO deter aggression. Highlight security benefits through collective defense. Attack one, attack all. But alliances aren't forever. An alliance crumbling due to disagreements, shifting geopolitics, shows they're fragile. Need unity, shared purpose.
So an ally isn't just about war support.
Not at all. An ally is a partner. Two countries might be close allies on economics, environment, collaborating on sustainable goals, trade deals, even without a military pact. Nations often seek new allies when treaties expire or the world changes, show strategic adaptation. And the official agreement signing them. Treaties, extradition treaties allowing criminal transfers, show treaties' role in international justice, making sure fugitives can't just cross a border to escape. Peace treaties ending long conflicts, huge diplomatic significance, redrawing maps, starting new eras. Trade treaties reducing tariffs globally, underscore massive economic impact. Boosting commerce, maybe lifting people from poverty, though sometimes controversial for local industries. From trade deals to security pacts, these terms are crucial. Understanding global interconnectedness, cooperation, shifting power dynamics, explains why countries act as they do internationally.
Okay, moving from structures and interactions to the big ideas, the isms, overarching beliefs, systems that fundamentally shape societies, political talk, where philosophy meets the practical, how societies organize themselves, their economies, values.
Exactly. Exploring the philosophical roots and practical outcomes of different approaches. Governance, economy, social order. These terms are like powerful lenses. Help us understand the diverse, often conflicting ways people imagine a just, effective society. They're not just labels. They're frameworks guiding policy, shaping opinion, sometimes sparking revolutions.
In today's info age, understanding propaganda feels more vital than ever. Biased, often false, information used deliberately, promote a political cause, a leader shaping perceptions, often manipulatively.
It is. And its methods have changed dramatically. Social media made it way easier to spread propaganda. Fast, wide, often bypassing traditional news sources, shows how it adapts to tech, its potential for rapid, pervasive spread, often in those echo chambers. Historically, wartime propaganda was used expertly. Rally citizens, support the war effort, shows its motivational use in conflicts, foster unity, demonize the enemy. Conversely, authoritarian regimes often use propaganda to trash opponents, suppress dissent, make their own rule look legit, negative framing, shaping the narrative, silencing other views. Being able to spot propaganda, its techniques, sources, intentions is a critical skill for any informed citizen navigating today's media. Making sense of info, especially politically charged stuff. Okay, next pair describe views or actions outside the mainstream, often demanding big shifts, sometimes dramatically. Radical, supporting total extreme change, and extremism, ideas most find extreme, unreasonable. The far ends of the spectrum. The examples show this clearly. A radical environmental group might stage disruptive protests, demanding immediate sweeping climate action, not small steps, but profound reforms. Similarly, radical policies propose to overhaul healthcare entirely, emphasize fundamental change, ditching existing models. Extremism then covers these radical ideas, but often adds intolerance, maybe rejecting democratic norms. Efforts to combat extremism often focus on education, promoting tolerance, societal countermeasures trying to prevent radicalization, foster understanding, online platforms, constantly monitoring for signs of extremism, shows its modern spread online, the challenge of moderating content. Both radicalism and extremism, by definition, tend to polarize people, create deep divides, impact democratic stability significantly. Understanding radicalism and extremism helps you spot the edges of political debate, the forces pushing for major societal change, and the challenges they can pose.
And from extreme ideas, sometimes we see the rise of dictators, rulers with total power, often gained by force or by crushing democracy, absolute power unchecked by law or people.
Signifies a specific, often oppressive type of rule, fundamentally against democracy. Many countries' histories are marked by years suffering under a dictator, often leading to revolution, uprisings, shows public resistance from prolonged oppression, that deep human desire for freedom. Dictators are known for suppressing all opposition media, controlling information, silencing dissent through censorship, intimidation. Shows how they maintain power through information control, shape the narrative, eliminate other voices. Historically, dictators often used propaganda to legitimize their regimes, underscores their reliance on manipulating the story. portray themselves as saviors, indispensable leaders. This word is crucial. Identifying authoritarian systems, understanding state control mechanisms, recognizing the huge challenges they pose to freedom, human rights globally.
These next three isms are fundamental ways societies organize economies, distribute wealth, basis of many global political debates. Capitalism, private sector owns industry, property. Communism, government controls all industry, no private ownership. And socialism, main industries, government-controlled, wealth equally divided. Foundational.
They really are. And understanding the nuances is key to grasping modern political economic discussions. The collapse of socialist regimes in Eastern Europe late 20th century marked a huge shift towards capitalism, shows historical transitions, economies moving from state-controlled to market-driven. Capitalism, at its best, drives innovation through competition. Businesses trying to outdo each other, new products, services. But critics often point to income inequality as a major drawback, wealth concentrating in fewer hands. For communism, the Soviet Union's collapse in '91 marked an end for state-controlled communism globally, mostly. Though its goal of classless societies and how different countries tried it, like China's unique market socialism, are notable. Influenced global politics hugely. Communism's ideal collective ownership, no private property, rarely fully achieved in practice, often led to authoritarian state control instead.
And what about socialism? Often seems like a middle ground, but the definition gets debated.
That's a good point. Socialism, proponents argue, can significantly reduce inequality, provide better social services, universal health care, free education, strong safety nets, funded by higher taxes. It can also blend with capitalism in mixed economies, hybrid systems, like in Scandinavia, balancing market forces with strong social welfare. But it definitely faced backlash, ideological opposition, especially during the Cold War, often wrongly lumped in with communism. The debate about the best balance between these systems, private versus public, individual versus collective, is ongoing. Shapes policy on everything from tax to social security. Understanding these economic systems helps you decode debates about wealth, equality, government's role in the economy. Gives context to so many current political fights.
Okay, rounding out ideologies. These terms present distinct, sometimes opposing visions for society, broad philosophical, political worldviews. Liberalism, personal freedom, democracy. Fascism, extreme right-wing, strong central government. And globalism, belief actions affect all. Global economic policy benefits shape how we see the world, our place in it.
They really capture broad, often conflicting worldviews, each with huge impact on government society. Liberalism, for instance. Critics might say it overlooks marginalized groups by focusing too much on individual responsibility. But proponents believe personal freedom, civil liberties, democratic institutions ultimately benefit everyone, foster open, adaptable societies. It heavily influenced modern democratic reforms, promoting gradual change. Economically, often favors market deregulation, free trade. Fascism, stark contrast, profoundly authoritarian, fought bravely by resistance in WWII due to its oppressive expansionist nature, fundamentally suppresses freedoms, aggressively promotes one country or race as superior, bans all opposition. Sadly, echoes can still appear in modern populism, extreme nationalism, strongman approach.
Chilling reminder, and then globalism feels very contemporary.
Indeed. Finally, globalism challenges traditional ideas of national sovereignty. Argues in our interconnected world, borders are more porous. Multinational organizations, international agreements, often influence national policies, promoting free trade pacts, global cooperation on climate change, free movement of capital, sometimes people. But criticism often focuses on cultural erosion, losing unique national identities. Arguments that globalist policies benefit big corporations, elites, at the expense of local communities, national workers, highlights its complex downsides. These concepts give a strong framework. Understanding the diverse, sometimes conflicting political philosophies playing out today helps make sense of the ideological battles shaping our future.
That was a deep dive into the isms. Okay, now let's look at the dynamic side of politics. How public opinion gets measured, temporary alliances form, unexpected shifts that can reshape a nation overnight, the ebb and flow, the unpredictable turns that keep things interesting.
This section really gets the pulse of political life. Measuring sentiment, understanding sudden power shifts, temporary fixes for ongoing problems. It's about the active, ever-changing nature of power, how it's sought, won, kept, and sometimes dramatically lost, where theory meets the messy reality of ambition and change.
In democracies, the poll is a crucial barometer, vital tool for knowing what people think, asking a representative sample questions to gauge public opinion. But they're not always spot on, are they?
Not at all. That's part of the nuance. They give critical snapshots, yes.
Yeah.
But an exit poll showing a closer race than predicted. highlights their predictive use right after voting, but also their potential errors. Public polls can significantly influence a party's platform, shows responsiveness to data, voter concerns, parties adjust messages, policies based on public mood, and monthly polls track leaders' approval ratings, shows ongoing monitoring of sentiment, how figures are seen over time, gives politicians a constant temperature check. When you see election predictions, satisfaction ratings, even consumer confidence, you're looking at polls, key tool for understanding voters, perceptions, shifting political winds. But always remember, snapshots, subject to error margins, the mood of the moment.
Politics often means groups teaming up, sometimes temporarily, to achieve goals they couldn't alone. That's a coalition, an alliance between countries or political parties, often to form a government or during elections, strategic partnerships.
Precisely. A strategic joining for a common purpose shows the art of compromise in politics. A trade union forming a coalition with student groups. Advocate for better conditions, affordable education, shows powerful cross-group unity. Diverse interests aligning on shared goals. A coalition government, very common in multi-party systems. Balances diverse interests among the allied parties. Highlights the compromises needed when no single party wins outright. And sometimes, a coalition falls apart after achieving its goal, or when big disagreements pop up, underscores their purpose-driven, often temporary nature, ready to reform into something new. Recognizing a coalition helps you see how different groups can unite for greater influence, achieve specific goals, and also how fragile those alliances can be.
A coup, one of the most dramatic, destabilizing events. An unexpected, illegal, often violent attempt by a small group, usually military, to overthrow a government. A total break from constitutional order.
A profound, often violent disruption. Stark challenge to legitimate authority. Many developing countries' histories, unfortunately, have unsuccessful coup attempts during democratic transitions. Shows the impact on stability, the fragility of new democracies. Military leaders pulling off a coup overnight often highlights the secret, swift execution. Key institutions seized before people can react. Such events almost always lead to international sanctions, shows global consequences, diplomatic fallout as other nations react to the unlawful power grab, often condemning the new regime. When you hear coup, you're seeing a fundamental challenge to legitimate rule. Far-reaching consequences for a nation, its people, its world standing, often leads to intense uncertainty.
The human cost of upheaval, like after a coup or repression, is often seen in exile, someone forced to live in another country, often a penalty, or for political reasons. Profound loss of home, identity.
Carries immense personal, political weight. Changes lives forever. Exile often brings severe emotional, psychological challenges. Separated from home, family, culture. Shows its deep human impact, the sense of loss. Political dissidents might live in exile for decades. Can't safely go home. Highlights long-term consequences for opposition figures, critical voices. Yet, exile can also spark incredible creativity. An author writing acclaimed memoirs, novels during exile, underscores cultural influences, how adversity sometimes inspires new expression, thought. This term speaks to severe consequences of political disagreement, suppression, the resilience of those affected by forced displacement, and the rich cultural contributions exiles often bring to new homes.
Political parties look unified, but almost always have internal divisions or wings. Members of a party sharing specific views or functions that might differ from the main party line.
Incredibly useful term. Helps understand internal diversity, the ideological spectrum within one party, the extremist wing of a movement, for instance, might push for radical immigration changes, pulling the party more hardline. Conversely, the moderate wing pushes for compromise, consensus, balancing forces, influencing direction, often trying to bridge divides, appeal broader. And it's not always ideology. Youth wings often energize campaigns, bring fresh ideas, volunteers, mobilize specific demographics, shows their potential influence on future leaders. Knowing about wings helps understand the different currents within a single party, why they might seem contradictory sometimes, or have varied stances as factions compete for influence.
In formal settings, like legislative meetings, getting an idea on the agenda needs a specific action to table it. Formally bring up a proposal or discussion at a meeting for consideration.
Important procedural term signifies formal introduction into the discussion or decision process. Union reps tabling concerns about working conditions and negotiations. Ensures their issues are officially recognized on the agenda. Legislators tabling a bill on environmental protection highlights parliamentary action, formally putting new law forward for debate, passage. A committee tabling amendments for a vote shows procedural steps. Items now officially on the docket ready for decision. When you hear an item's been tabled, it means it's formally introduced for discussion or vote, part of the official agenda. Critical step in any formal decision-making.
Life and politics often need temporary fixes, interim measures, until a permanent plan is ready. Adjective describing something intended to last only until something permanent is presented or finalized.
Signifies a bridging role. Temporary state to stabilize things, allow careful planning. A council using interim measures for a crisis, say, sudden housing shortage until a full plan is ready, shows short-term solutions and emergencies, prevent immediate collapse. An interim government stabilizing a nation post-coup or during conflict highlights transitional governance, filling a power vacuum until a legit permanent structure is set up via elections or reform. Even less dramatically, interim reports update stakeholders on progress, shows temporary communication in processes, updates before final conclusions. Recognizing an interim solution means understanding it's a stopgap, temporary fix, more enduring resolution still to come. Situation is still in flux.
Sometimes, to avoid conflict, concessions are made, even against principles. This is appeasement, policy of giving in to demands to keep peace, often at cost of principles or long-term interests.
A policy with big ethical, strategic trade-offs. Often has negative vibe due to history. Critics arguing a government's appeasement of corporate interests may be weakening environmental rules, undermined its green commitment. Shows policy compromises leading to ethical issues, long-term harm. Historically, appeasement towards aggressive regimes in the 1930s, Britain, France, towards Nazi Germany, often cited as failing to prevent war. Shows past failures where concessions didn't bring peace may be emboldened aggressors. Yet sometimes, diplomatic appeasement might ease short-term tensions, buy time in volatile situations. Shows tactical uses for temporary benefits. When you hear appeasement, it should make you think that tough balance between peace and principles. Potential for immediate relief, but also long-term costs.
Finally, a glimpse into the support systems of powerful people, the indispensable group around them, their entourage, group of people working for, accompanying someone powerful or famous, support security council.
Often linked to celebrities, right? Feeling overwhelmed as her entourage grew. But its political relevance is significant, practical. A president's entourage usually includes security, key advisors, press secretaries, aides, highlights protective, supportive roles, crucial for top officials. Safety, schedule, expert advice on the spot. Even a diplomat traveling with a small entourage. Underscores logistical, strategic functions, facilitating their mission abroad, ensuring they have support to represent their country effectively. Helps you visualize that immediate support system around influential figures. Security to key advisors, the complex human infrastructure enabling their work.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've taken today. A real deep dive into the language of politics. Over 40 C1 level terms explored, unlocking a deeper understanding of our world. From the subtle art of lobbying to the stark realities of dictatorships, the nuanced dance of diplomatic protocols, you now have a bigger toolkit for understanding it all. We looked at how these terms show the dynamics of power, the complexities of governing, that fundamental battle of ideas.
Indeed, a fascinating exploration. We saw how terms like federalism describe national structure, propaganda shapes perception, activism drives change from the ground up. These aren't just definitions, they're keys. Critically analyzing news, having informed discussions, seeing the why behind political events, not just the what. This vocabulary lets you go beyond the surface, delve into the intricate mechanics of government, power, understand the deeper context of every political debate.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Next time you read a headline, hear a debate, catch a news report, pause. Listen for these terms, hear the nuance, question the implications. You'll find yourself way better equipped to understand that complex interplay. Power, policy, people. It's about being an active, informed participant in the global conversation, not just passive.
Which leads to a question for you. How might understanding these words empower you to better analyze news, join discussions, maybe even shape your own political views in this ever-changing world? We really encourage you to keep exploring related texts, current events. Build on this foundation. And please, if you found this deep dive helpful, do like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more insights into fascinating topics. We love having you with us.